Yeah. Oh, it's live. There we go.
Now we're live.
Now we will have to be serious.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's Kim Bromley and Carole Randell doing a practitioner chat. If you are here, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know and put some questions into the chat and leave us a message if possible.
Yeah. I'm just going to apologise for my halo. It slipped slightly. I hope it's not going to hurt anybody's eyes because it's quite bright, but there's nothing I can do about it, sadly.
And we're both psychotherapists. I'm in Eastbourne on the south coast of the UK. And Carole, do you want to tell us where you are at the moment?
Yes, well, currently in North Island of New Zealand. So, yeah, so I'm in the evening here and you're in early morning, aren't you? Early-ish morning. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's 9:30 here. So Carole and I met a few years ago when we were doing some training, Carole's doing some CPD training through the Crisis Effect. And that's where we sort of united for the first time. And strangely enough, I was in Eastbourne still then, and you were in New Zealand. So nice.
That's right. Yeah, it's come full circle.
It has come full circle. Yeah. So through the Crisis Effect, we both learned more about chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
And there was training there, wasn't there, through the Crisis Effect about becoming a wellbeing coach. So we've both, not just psychotherapists, we're also coaches. And that's where we first met. And luckily enough, we came together again a few years ago through SIRPA.
Absolutely delighted when I saw your face pop up in the webinar. I thought, oh, I know Kim. Yeah.
So that's why George has asked us to have a practitioner chat today. So, Carole, is there other things you'd like to add to the short introduction I've made?
I was just really about similarity of our kind of own well-being journey, isn't it? You know, we both struggle with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia amongst a lot of other things, as you know, and how we continue to sort of grow and as people and as practitioners, and it's quite exciting when you come back together again, isn't it? And because you don't have to do that building of a relationship. We already know each other, which is nice, you know, and so we can launch straight into where we left off almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can have instant connections with someone, and I think even though at that point you were training and I was at a different part of I was the trainer at that time. And you did exceptionally well. So we've got Caroline here, we've got Tanya here. Hi guys, nice to see you. Please put some things in the questions in the chat if you've got anything you'd like to ask. Yes, we had an instant connection. So I don't know about you, Carole, but possibly that the chronic fatigue and the terrible pain, fibromyalgia pain that I had, may have started the dysregulation of my nervous system when I was really very, very tiny. I think you and I have talked about it before.
Yeah, we have. It's only in retrospect that we've looked back at childhood and we've realised, both of us, that actually because of our family dynamics and our dysfunctional family arena, as it were, that, you know, had an impact on us from very early childhood. Yeah.
I think when I learned, first of all, about adverse childhood experiences, and you read that list, and I was looking at it really academically and how with my clients that I work with. But I think it was Dave Clark that's when he said, would you want a young person that you care about going through your own childhood? That was possibly the turning point for me to understand that I went through an awful lot of things that I wouldn't want my own children to have gone through or anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah, it does really sort of ground you, doesn't it? And it's quite confrontational when you start to see, you know, things in your own life, you know, from the voice of somebody else, and you start to join the dots, and that's when your sort of true healing really starts then, doesn't it?
I think it's about, for me, Carole, is about finding compassion for myself, because I've always been a people pleaser. That stemmed from when I was little because of mainly my mum. And I think that's gone into becoming appeasing and then putting my own physical needs and emotional needs right to the back because I just wanted to feel safe enough to be loved. That is that simple.
Yeah, and we sort of learn what we live, don't we? That's the thing. And a lot of this as children is about our survival, because we just know we need to feel safe somehow. So we change ourselves to try and, like you say, appease the other people, in a way to try and bring that sense of certainty and safety into our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I chose a relationship quite early on in my late teens, early 20s, and it reflected the instability that I had as a child. Then it became quite unstable in the marriage as well. So it continued, and it reinforced the fact Kim needs to try harder, Kim needs to work longer hours, she needs to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother. And Carole, I found I can't. It's that simple. Couldn't be. And my body said no, enough now.
I think it creeps up on you, doesn't it? You know, and what you do is you keep pushing, and we get these various symptoms. It might be IBS, it might be headaches, you know, it might be just a general malaise or whatever it is. But we don't stop at all. We just, because of the type of personality we are, we push through that until we start to find ourselves in sort of burnout territory. And if we still don't listen, of course, we go into the breakdown territory, which has happened to me more than once, until finally I have learned to listen.
Yeah, I found that my body was giving me early warning signs, but because I was trying to feel safe enough to be loved, I just tried harder. You know, well, Kim's got to put her big girl boots on and get on with it. We just discussed before we became live, when we were both doing our degrees, that when I was doing my degree, I was looking after the home, the children, working. I was volunteering. I was having to do extra hours. As you know, we have to do extra hours to make sure we got enough hours for working with clients. And I was also doing lots of charity work as well. So, you know, when we talk about being the goodest, I think you and I both fit that. We fit that very well. And I think you said when I was trying to write my thesis, I couldn't do late at night, never been able to work late into the night. So I'd go to bed normal time and wake up at 2 a.m. and write my thesis then. So and then get the kids to school, go to work, volunteer, whatever it happened to be. And I think you were the same, Carole.
Yeah, absolutely the same. I think what I've discovered is I don't actually have a cut-off switch, so I have to really be quite guarded. And I've started to work to that 80-20 rule, you know, trying to hold 20% of myself back, which is really difficult because our 80% is 100% of somebody else's, of course. And it's such a difficult thing because you're not cognizant of it at all. You just keep give, and then one day you just can't get out of bed, you know. But of course, by then you've tipped over the edge and gone down into the deep valley below, haven't you?
Yeah. And I think that's why you and I, as psychotherapists, have tried to support people before they get to the burnout. That's why we've written a wellbeing plan, haven't we, for SIRPA, and why, as clinical supervisors now, it's really important for us that we can help other therapists not necessarily experience some of the burnout phases that you and I've experienced.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, I'd love to see kind of for youngsters as well, for them to have a self-care plan, you know, that they can carry throughout life. And it's not about Netflix and having your nails done and bubble baths and things like that. It's about being able to take time out, you know, and daydream. That's okay to be like that, to do that. It's okay to find joy and laughter, muck around, you know. You don't have to be serious all the time, you know. So
and I think that maybe for me stemmed back the fact that my parents worked really, really hard, so it wasn't mirrored to me that joy, fun, laughter, taking time out, that wasn't a natural part of what we did. So I have to actually show in my diary the times when I am going to be doing my yoga, my meditation, literally walking the dog. Walking the dog is in my diary every day. So I make sure that I don't put anything else in there. Because I have found it and still can find it difficult to prioritise my own self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know if I sit down at my desk, then I don't stop. I will just keep going on and on and on. There's always something important I need to complete or finish. I'll just do this or I'll just do that, you know. Whereas if I start the day with my meditation, like you say, or going for my walk, I've then at least, you know, filled up my own emotional well-being and physical well-being before I give out. Otherwise, you just end up, you know, being completely empty, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And because I trained as a yoga teacher as well to help with the somatic work and helping me to feel grounded and come out of my head. And I love the teaching. So when I was transitioning from the ending of a 30-year relationship, me being a yoga teacher became really important because my people that were coming to yoga actually became my family, because that was the routine that I had, and they were there for me. They didn't know I was going through a separation, but they were there for me, and it was their nervous systems that were helping me to feel regulated and as calm as I could be.
Absolutely.
And it's really important. I don't know about for you, Carole, but for me, actually getting out to a class where there are other people, and I'm not leading a yoga class, that's important for me, that I've got other people that can help bring me joy. It's not just about me being the teacher.
Well, it's interesting because I've just gone back to yoga. I'm now back on the yoga mat after 2 years of not kind of doing it. And I'd forgotten how much better you feel after a class, you know, and I was expecting to feel really stiff and sore. I haven't had any of that. So it just goes to show I'm doing all the right things and in the right place for myself. Because before I could cry at yoga because it hurt so much, you know, when I wasn't in a good place. So,
Some people feel that we've got to be really supple, you know, really supple and bendy, perhaps at 20 something, a size 6 or an 8. And it couldn't be further for me.
Some
obviously.
People are, of course, but no, I'm not like that.
For me, it couldn't be further from the truth. It really has helped me to come back into my body.
I think there's something about showing up, and it's showing commitment to yourself as well. And they say about doing the regular practice, but it's not just about doing the practice. It's just that it allows your mind freedom because you don't have to think when you're doing it. That's the thing.
Absolutely. And strangely enough, through the chrysalis effect, I went on a retreat to Portugal, and it was a yoga retreat, and we were doing yoga a couple of times a day, and I had one of the biggest physical releases in my body of trauma. I didn't know what it was at the time. And from that moment forwards, it really it was life-changing, probably. So when I'm actually physically moving and when I'm feeling safe enough, that's when I can have an awful lot of releases of what has been stored within my body. And sometimes I don't know what the sensation is, but I allow it to flow through.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because people automatically assume that you need to meditate in order to release trauma and things like that. But actually, quite often, it's the movement to release the trauma itself that helps.
Because I wonder, I don't know about you, with the fatigue, and it's not just, you feel a bit tired. It's when it's chronic fatigue, it's so debilitating, isn't it? I can remember just being on the sofa trying to do the minimum to keep the children fed and get them to school. I so wanted to be with them, I just couldn't do it. So my whole life purpose changed, but I felt chained. I felt really stuck, very, very stuck. And how do you get out of that?
Slowly is the way I would say it. But first of all, it's understanding, isn't it? You just have to really understand. It's not so much the external searching, but it's actually understanding about what's going on in with your neuroplastic, with the brain. Now we know a lot more about that. There's been lots of research done about it as well. About it's not it's a condition, it's not a disease. You know, people call it a disease, and it's not at all. It's a manageable condition, which actually, if you manage it in the right way, you can come through and come out of. It's not to say you might not get triggered at some point, because you might, but if you know what your triggers are and you know what you've got to do to keep yourself fit, well and able, then you're more likely to be able to never feel those symptoms again.
Absolutely. And I think that's what Georgie through SIRPA is saying. You know, it's not just about managing symptoms of chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, it's you can recover, and we have recovered.
Yeah.
But we still need to do lots of self-care,
Yeah, it's an ongoing lifetime thing. I think just that's what life's about, isn't it? It's about evolving, it's about changing, it's about understanding, you know, and we all go through cycles in life. They say, don't we, every 10 years or so, there's usually a big change in people's lives, and so then you adapt, move on, you know, so yeah. Have we got any questions, Kim, at all, by any chance?
I haven't got any questions. Ladies, have you got any questions for us? We'd love to hear something. If you could post a comment, ask questions that we can answer for you. No, I'm afraid, Carole, nobody. We've blinded them.
Yeah.
Something that's helped me. Obviously, I've had a lot of psychotherapy, coaching, to be able to have somebody that I can relate to and help me to feel safe enough to explore some of the parts of my past, and at that point, the present has helped a lot. But we've talked about yoga, somatic tracking being really useful, and I love Ariel Schwartz's work, where we can begin to do the polyvagal and applied polyvagal practices, where we can actually learn to soothe the nervous system, the vagus nerve, or actually upregulate it. So when we're in fatigue and shut down, that's when we're in that feigned death. And there are gentle practices that we can do to help us move out of that shutdown and gently move up the polyvagal ladder. So that does help. But I know there are some practices I can do.
Are there any sort of practices you can explain, or one or two perhaps, that you could show us or tell us? I think
Caroline's trying to say something. No, I can't see it. Yes, I'm here. Right. What was the seed that was sown to give you the courage to start healing?
Oh, I don't know if it was a seed so much as just a blimmin' great rock that dropped from on high, and one day I just couldn't get up and carry on. I was sat at my desk at work, and that was it. I completely closed down. I didn't even know how to put a piece of paper into a plastic file envelope. It was that bad.
You hit rock bottom.
Absolutely. Absolute breakdown. Complete breakdown. And somebody had to drive me home. And that's where I stayed on the sofa for a few years.
I've been there. I have been to that stage, and I'm thinking, how can I take the next breath? So it wasn't that I wanted to die. I just didn't know how I could continue. How could I exist? Yeah. But Caroline, my seed was probably, my children would prefer a mummy that is alive and well and active, rather than staying in the situation that I was in at the time. So I found that perhaps I didn't have enough belief in myself that I was worthy, but my children and my responsibility towards my children is that I need to be as well as I can for them. Even if leaving the relationship with their father was incredibly difficult for them. So that was, I felt I was in an environment where my nervous system didn't feel at ease or safe.
Yeah.
Maria's asking, can you use somatic tracking with fatigue?
Yes, is the simple answer. It's very much about sitting in the feeling, sensation, turning inward towards it. I quite often talk to my self. wherever it is I might be feeling it, or put my hand on the place where I might feel it, and just sort of nurture it, I guess, is what the word I'm looking for. So it's nurturing myself. So yes, you can most definitely do somatic tracking.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the key there is that I think you said compassion. And I'm going to ask on Maria's behalf, Maria, if that's all right. How do we, if we've got a very inner critic, a strong inner critic, because it's something I'm often asked with my clients, how can we churn compassion towards ourselves? So if we tend to be people pleasing, so we're giving out all the time, and you and I are really good at that, and perhaps some other people that have chronic fatigue, how do we turn that compassion we give to others to ourselves?
So the first thing I think is to notice your inner critic, that self-critical inner voice that you've got, that judgment one, that shame one that you've got, that constantly comes up. You're not good enough. You should be doing more. You're letting people down. You're not doing enough, whatever it might be. And as to notice that was my first thing, is to notice that, and write, actually on a piece of paper, I used to write down what it was I was saying to myself. And it's quite horrifying when you look at that, because you wouldn't talk to other people in that way at all. And so rather than, calling yourself stupid or not good enough, etc., you just put your hand on your heart, put your hand on your belly, and just hold yourself or haven yourself, show yourself some compassion, something like along those lines, and just stop, do that pausing, that breathing, and that feeling, and turn inward. And that to me is what compassion is about. And that give yourself some leeway. You don't have to be 100% of the time. You can have bad days, and that's okay too,
I think, yes, absolutely, we can. And I think that's something I've had to learn is, okay, I do consider myself absolutely, I no longer have chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, but yes, I can still get a headache or pain in my legs or backache or feel tired. But I know that if I turn towards myself and I work it through, it's very, 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 very different. But Maria, you're right, I do need to keep turning inwards to see if I used to have a pain in my right buttock cheek, and working through what that pain was and not ignoring it, but turning towards it. What did it need to say to me? Morning, Janine. Lovely to see you. Have you got any questions? Carole and I would love to hear from you if you've got any questions, any of you.
I would also say, it can be quite difficult to switch off those inner messages that we've been giving ourselves from years, and also we've picked up from childhood, and we talked about that a little bit earlier about dynamics, dysfunction, and things like that, and also in our grown-up relationships as well. So it's important to have somebody in your life that can advocate for you if you can't advocate for yourself. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's why I firmly believe that if we have, for me, part of my healing journey was to be able to feel I could trust another. So that happened to be a coach and my counsellor, to be able to allow them to know my innermost fears, feelings, concerns. And I was seen, I was heard, I wasn't made to feel stupid or insignificant. But then I have layered it with lots of somatic and lots of body work as well.
I think there's something here about beliefs as well, Kim. We believe what we're told, don't we? And tend to absorb all of those messages, negative messages as well, from society, work, relationships that we're in. And so we can then become less confident in ourselves and our, confidence in our self-worth and our self-esteem. And I think when that takes a really big bashing, which it can do, let's face it, for many of us, it's about knowing that's not who we really are. Other people's opinions are not who we are. It's about what we tell ourselves, who we think we are internally, and supporting ourselves, being our biggest advocate, being vulnerable where we need to be, being authentic, all those sorts of things go towards creating, that much more centered, grounded sense of self.
Yes, completely. And it's time. So all of the things we're suggesting, I've had to learn to know that I'm good enough to make time for myself. So one of the questions I would ask on a client is, if there's a lot of inner critic voice, where's that? Whose voice is it? Where's that voice come from? And I had, on my mum's side, my grandfather, I can still remember trying to standing in front of him. It was in front of in the kitchen, in front of a fridge, and I was trying to remember my times tables, and I can't remember. It might have been my 7 times tables, and he was getting more and more intense with me, and I just shut down more and more. So the learning that I wasn't enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't clever enough. There was a lot of tension that I can relate to now as an adult, that I just lived in and just thought was normal. Absolutely.
Yeah, normal. Absolutely. Yeah. As I said, we learn what we're told, what we normally believe. And I've
had to learn to take, that's not me, that's the baggage I've taken on.
And from someone else. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Whatever was going on Granddad's mind, that was Granddad's thing to sort through. It wasn't Kim at quite a young age trying to learn her tables.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, ladies, any other questions have you got? They're being very quiet, Carole.
They are being very quiet today. I thought Tanya might give us a bit of value for money.
We've got a hand clap, I think, and that's about as much. She's behaving herself. So, I think a lot of it with fatigue, chronic fatigue, it's knowing it's a real condition. My daughter, and I have permission to talk about it, my daughter has also been diagnosed with chronic fatigue. And of course, she was in the same environment, living in the same environment that I was. And very slowly, she's now a young woman, she's had to learn self-care, turn towards the really difficult and complex relationships that she's been in with the caregivers around her, which weren't just me, although I was the one that was blamed. And of course, that didn't help my nervous system at all. So it can run, dysregulation, obviously, as we know, can run in family groups.
And I don't want people to, if they're feeling stuck at the moment, this is not a linear thing, this getting through to the other side. It's up and it's down, it gets stuck, and it's layer by layer that you unpick this stuff. So I don't want anybody thinking, I've been like this for the last however long it might be, thinking I'm never going to get better. That's the sort of belief you need to be working on, because you will have had periods of glimmers of being okay, but what we tend to do, our focus goes more to the negative than it does on focusing on those glimmers of good things that happen. Hi, Shaheen.
Okay, Shanine has said, Carole, if that's right, sorry to interrupt. A client suffering from fibromyalgia and fatigue asked, why does she crash and suffer even after a good day where symptoms were minimal and she felt good?
Because, to be honest, your nervous system is just so used to being in that kind of overactive, excited state. That's where the normal is. So you will push yourself further than you realise, because, as I said, there's no cut-off switch. So you will overcommit. Instead of doing things, doing something, having a break, for example, what we tend to find with this personality type is you push push yourself along all day until you crash at the end of it, because you just have not learned that, you know, it's okay to sit down and have a cup of tea and not think when you sat down with your cup of tea, oh, I'll just get up and do that. I'll just put the washing on, or whatever it might be. So it's a lot around re-education. And in fact, I practically had to tie myself to a chair, you know, in my brain, to sit and drink a cup of tea, because I could not sit still that long. And it's a really difficult thing to learn, that it's okay to not keep on keeping on.
Absolutely. And I think what Shanine maybe experienced with her client is maybe the nervous system is still
functioning at a high rate.
Absolutely, and can have its highs and its lows. And Shanine, I'm really happy to say I'm getting married this year, and even though it's really positive and it's all wonderful in lots of ways, I'm still getting deregulated because I'm excited and I'm not used to feeling excited. So it's finding ways of me pacing myself, even though it's good and supportive, and the family that I'm marrying into, all good and supportive. I'm excited. So my nervous system is finding it very unusual to be dealing with lots of different people, different demands. And so I still have to pace myself.
And I think to know that in this day and age, you know, we're constantly being triggered and activated because we've got our phones that, you know, on all the time, or we're looking at them without even realizing it half the time. We're scrolling through them, or we're on our computers for quite a long time, you know, on laptops or whatever it might be. So we very rarely in this day and age take time out to not do something. And one thing I've now put into place is an afternoon nap. So 1:30 every day, I go to bed for an hour, put my alarm on my phone, just go to bed. Sometimes I fall asleep, sometimes I don't. That to me has made all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And I think we don't make enough notice is the fact we are bombarded by adverts, but the news, the rolling news. If I get sucked into the news, as we may all be aware, there was an aeroplane crash in India last week, and I did hear the news, and they were showing photographs and giving interviews of entire families that are no longer with us, with young children. And my grandparents didn't have to deal with this.
No.
You know, and I've made another effort. I'm coming away. I don't want to hear the news at the moment to help regulate me. You know, lots of compassion and love has been sent from me to those families. But we're, even if we have good days, there's a lot of information our nervous systems are having to work through.
Yeah, and I think it's about giving yourself permission, isn't it, to not engage all the time, but to find some time for self.
If any of you that are listening to this, if you're beginning to go into fatigue, chronic fatigue or burnout, what are your early warning signs? I'd love to know what your early warning signs is. That's why we've tried to create that wellbeing toolkit, haven't we? So Carole, what would you say your early warning signs would have been?
Then mine is that I get this neck headache, as I call it here, and then it goes to my stomach. And if I really don't take any notice of that, then I know I'm in for it, as it were. So I try to really, once I start, there's a little bulge appears on the back of my neck, and I get this headache that comes all the way up over the top. And believe it or not, I used to not know how I put one foot in front of the other when I was working full time in an office, and I would get to work. I don't know how I did it now, but as soon as I start to feel that, I know I need to rest more, or stop doing what I'm doing, go outside, have a walk, do a few yoga stretches, do a yoga nidra, whatever it might be.
My early warning signs before my burnouts that I ignored were headaches, sinusy headaches. I mean, I was sent off for scans to see whether I had brain cancer and all sorts of things. Maria's early warning sign is less patience. Yes, Maria, quite right. I had forgotten that one. My tolerance of perhaps speaking with someone. Yes, I don't have the quietness. Maybe my partner can tell, apparently, in my voice, the tone of my voice changes, so he can possibly be aware of me becoming more tired earlier than I am.
Yeah.
I don't tend to get the headaches anymore, but yes, me probably being a bit shorter with him is probably an early warning sign. And
I think the speed that you talk at as well increases.
Yes.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
And sometimes the decision making that we make when we're going into this, into a dip, we were just saying we can perhaps take on too much, and we do more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah. These are some really good questions we're getting here. Thank you, people.
Absolutely. Caroline, mine is tingling down my left leg.
Okay.
And so, Maria, Caroline, what would you do then when you get those early warning signs? What do you do to begin to notice, and what do you do to make a change? I'd really love to know, because I think Carol and I were saying before we came on, this is a lifelong self-care, isn't it? That's what we've learned. It's not just, oh, I'm recovered now. This is something that we have put in place. We didn't learn it when we were little, the self-care.
And we didn't receive it either. I think that's the important thing to remember. So the only person that can do that for you is yourself.
Yeah.
We can't look to other people. They've got their own kind of issues and challenges and pathway to walk. So we have to kind of really do it for us and be our own kind of advocate, really, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And continually do it. So that maybe on those, we have those down days, of course we do more rest and self-care.
Yeah.
I had a client yesterday, and she has loved to listen to sound baths. That has helped her in the past. At the moment she's going through a bit of a dip. And so she's working out a strategy of how she can look after herself when she's in that dip, which is different to strategies when she's feeling better.
The other thing I'd say, Kim, is, it doesn't have to be serious. We can have a good old belly laugh, what's something quite funny, and you'd be surprised how that lifts your mood as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Caroline, I hope you don't mind me using the name. I like to take a peek inside and find out what it is that I'm not paying attention to. I'll go and sit outside, do some rage on the page, journaling. I have to say, I'm looking after an elderly relative whom I care very much for at the moment, and have been for a few years. And sometimes, as much as you say joy, absolutely, the rage, and I didn't think I felt rage, but of course there is rage inside me. So sometimes I will release some with passion when I'm in my car, safe in my car, and release just to let rid of that primal scream of, oh my goodness. This is tough.
Wouldn't it be nice though, Kim, if we could, intercept it before it gets to that point, just when we're starting to feel frustrated and we get that sensation of frustration, to acknowledge it?
The thing is, Carol, I think I do acknowledge it, but because this is a chronic ongoing issue with my stepfather's ill health, how can I resolve it? Because it's ongoing. I'm in the situation. I can't get out of the situation. So it's finding an acceptance in me that, of course, it's ongoing, and I'm very lucky to have him still in my life. But also, this is tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. Yeah, absolutely. And I think acknowledging it's tough, as well. So,
Maria, I take more time out, sit in the garden and go for walks. Yes. She loves a sound bath. Yes, me too. Very much so. Very, very much so. And you like your yoga nidras, don't you, Carol?
I love my yoga nidras. I do them every day now. I do an hour one every day now, because I just get so much from it. It just takes me away from the outside, distractions and complications of stuff, that's going on around me. And it is a time just for me. And I'm quite proud now to say that, whereas before I would have felt quite selfish and almost embarrassed to admit that I needed that.
Do you think it brings you joy as well as everything else? It brings you joy, because I wonder whether Carole and Maria is saying they want to be outside, and that sounds to me it's joyful. It's taking their nervous systems outside and have some fun. As much as we might be turning towards the rage, it's regulate us and also be fun if we're outside playing, as it were.
Yeah, and don't think you're too old to go on the swings or stamp your feet in muddy puddles and kick the leaves up and things like that. I discovered that when I had my grandchildren were quite young, and I'd never done that as a child, but my goodness me, I made up for it with my grandchildren. I used to come back, we used to be covered in mud, and much to my son and daughter-in-law's disgust.
Something to make us giggle. Of course, I've done lots of journaling, and when I've run workshops and bits and pieces, we'd go outside and we would have written down some of our negative self-talk and pop it on paper, and then in a safe way burn it to release it, to let it go. And of course, I've done that at home, like a little ritual of letting go of the emotions, negative thoughts, etc. And of course, and I will say to all my clients, please be careful, that if you're lighting something, well, Carole, was one day I was doing this, took it all outside, made it all very safe, and of course, and it did burn, but then I thought the house was going to catch light because of where it went. So please, if you ever do burn elements of your journal or what you've written, please be careful and don't be
right.
Yes, like I did. So yes, absolutely. So Carole, is there anything else you'd like to add today that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I think we've pretty much covered most things, haven't we? Anything for you? I mean, is there anything outstanding for you?
I think what you and I are really passionate about is to support, certainly as clinical supervisors, but if any of you are, as practitioners, are finding it tough because you're taking on lots of work from clients, but also you've got maybe things going on in your home life as well, we really want to reach out to each and every one of you that we don't have to get to burnout. There are lots of things that we can put in place. So
and I think the thing is to remember, we don't recognise burnout until it's too late. So that's where this wellbeing plan comes into being.
And I think that's why I really feel at home within the SIRPA family, and I do feel like it's like a little family. Is that we can support each other. Because this is a big task that we've got to help people. Really important, but we need to feel well enough ourselves to be able to get that out into the world around us.
And I just want to acknowledge to people as well, I know that it's not always possible to turn your life inside out and upside down to get yourself out of the situation that you're in that might be contributing to this. So it's finding just little glimmers in your day that can help ease things as well.
Tiny little changes. And sometimes having that buddy, so I'm lucky enough to have Carole and other people in my life we can reach out to, knowing that we're not in competition with each other. It's not that I'm a better therapist, Carole's better or anything like that. It's just we're one woman speaking to another woman that might be having a bit of a tough time.
It's just being human.
And that's okay.
Absolutely.
So ladies, we are going to begin to end today's practitioner chat. If there's anything else you'd like to speak to us about, I'm sure Carole's happy to take any emails. I'm happy to take any emails. Our details obviously all over the SIRPA practitioner site. And if there's nothing else you'd like to add or give us a question about now, I don't think so.
Go and have a glimmery, joyful day.
Final glimmers for today. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. Take care. See you later. They're going to go and have a sit down and they're gone. Good for them. Take care. Bye-bye.